"Excuse me, sir, but are you planning on paying for this?" Every eye in the checkout area shifted to the coffee jar held by the assistant manager and then to the old man who stood motionless, his grip tightening on the handle of his shopping basket, which contained only a few inexpensive items. Danny Brooks, had been inside the market for only a few moments. A carton of milk, some rye bread, and the coffee jar were his only purchases. His movements were labored, his left knee aching from an old wound, one he'd carried longer than most people in the store had been alive. He wore a worn-out baseball cap with a unit emblem on it, so faded and tiny it was almost impossible to make out. At the checkout, the young clerk rang up his groceries without a word. The customers behind him inched forward. A sudden, jarring sound cut through the air, and the clerk's hand stopped in its tracks. From the other side of the store, Tyler Briggs, the assistant manager, strode over as if drawn by conflict. At 28, recently promoted and full of himself, Tyler loved to assert his authority. He snatched the coffee jar off the counter and held it up for all to see as if it were illegal goods. "This item wasn't on the conveyor," he declared, his voice loud enough for several aisles to overhear. "It seems you were trying to hide it in your bag." Danny slowly raised his gaze, his weathered face giving nothing away. "I placed it right there," he stated, his voice quiet but firm. "Of course you did. A classic move. Act innocent, appeal to pity. We get your type in here constantly." A quiet, harsh chuckle came from someone in the line. A teenager made a dismissive sound. A man standing near the candy display smirked, looking as if his suspicions about the world had just been confirmed. Danny offered no response. His left hand had a slight shake, not with nerves, but from a decades-old shrapnel injury that was always with him. Tyler addressed the clerk. "Get security. I want this dealt with by the book." The young man at the register looked uneasy. "Sir, perhaps it was an accident." "No, the policy is the policy. We don't let shoplifters leave." And so, Daniel Brooks, a man who had once run through a hail of bullets to rescue comrades from flaming wreckage, found himself standing under the harsh lights of a grocery store, condemned by people who had no idea who he was, while his entire character was being decided over a $6 jar of coffee. Danny didn't flinch as the store's single security guard, a thin man in an ill-fitting uniform, walked over from the main entrance. The whispers around him intensified. Some people craned their necks to get a better view. Others shook their heads, certain they were seeing the sad final chapter of a formerly respectable man. Tyler Briggs seemed to puff out his chest, as if the guard's arrival validated his accusation. "Sir, I will need to ask you to turn out your pockets." Danny's gaze remained steady. He carefully placed his basket on the counter, reached into the back pocket of his faded jeans, and took out a worn leather wallet. The material was creased with age, the threads coming loose. He opened it without any drama, showing a weathered military ID and a small, scuffed coin that gleamed under the store's lights. "Cute souvenir," Tyler sneered, stepping closer. "You can get those on the internet, you know. They sell whole sets, fake IDs, patches, even medals. Some guys are really committed to the performance." In the adjacent checkout lane, a woman named Lisa Morgan, in her mid-30s, stopped what she was doing. She had been unloading her cart when the design on the coin caught her eye. 5 bolts of lightning beneath a silver hawk. She went still. That was not a symbol for public view. She had only seen it one other time, in a top-secret briefing years ago, where she wasn't even permitted to keep her notes. She took a small step toward the scene, her eyes locked on the coin. Tyler was still talking, but his voice was just background noise to her. "Can I help you?" Tyler's voice broke her focus. Lisa looked at him, then gestured to the coin in Danny's hand. "Where did you receive that?" she asked in a low voice. Danny's eyes met hers for just a second. "I was awarded it," he replied. The guard looked back and forth between them, his certainty wavering. Tyler just rolled his eyes. Right, more likely from a thrift store. In the meantime, in the cluttered back office, the store's bookkeeper was reviewing the day's incident reports. The name Daniel Brooks in the Banned for Theft section made his hand pause over the mouse. He recognized that name. He'd seen it etched in bronze on the town's war memorial, under the Gulf War veterans. He also knew that an anonymous benefactor had paid for that same memorial almost 30 years prior. He grabbed the office phone and called a number that wasn't on any official contact list. His voice was hushed and tense. "There's a problem. It's Brooks. Daniel Brooks. He's here. In the store." Back at the checkouts, Lisa's voice pierced through Tyler's rant. "You need to return that coffee to his bag." Tyler scoffed. "Ma'am, you have no idea what's going on." Lisa's voice was calm but firm. "I know precisely what is going on." She looked at the security guard, her gaze communicating that this was not a situation to take lightly. The guard faltered, suddenly realizing this might be well above his pay grade. Danny stood silently, his face a mask. He had endured worse than this, much worse. But as the conflict simmered, the atmosphere in the market began to subtly change, building toward a climax that no one there could have possibly anticipated. Lisa Morgan didn't waste her breath arguing with Tyler Briggs. She didn't have to. She took a step back, melting into the background as she pulled out her phone. Moving toward the automatic doors and away from the onlookers, she dialed a number saved deep in her contacts list. It was answered on the first ring. A man's voice said a single word. "Speak." "It's about the Falcon coin," Lisa said crisply. "Brooks is here." A short silence followed, just a moment, but it felt charged with significance. "Your location," the voice demanded. "Redford, Oregon, Oak Street Market. Remain on site." The call ended. Inside the store, Tyler was still lecturing. "Sir, I'm afraid I'm going to have to detain you until—" The security guard shifted his feet, now obviously wishing he were anywhere else. "Look, maybe we can just—" A sharp look from Tyler silenced him. "Just do what you're paid to do." Danny hadn't shifted, his weight on his uninjured leg, the jar of coffee still on the counter. His hands were at his sides, his wallet and coin returned to his pocket, but his posture, firm, unyielding, showed that no amount of public shaming was going to break him. In the back office, the accountant spoke urgently into the phone. "Yes, it's Brooks. Daniel Brooks. Served in the Gulf and Vietnam. He's in my store right now." On the other end, a much older man's voice was tight with understanding. "Keep your eyes on him." The accountant turned his chair to face the grainy monitor displaying the security camera feed. Danny was right there at checkout 3, looking just as he did in the old pictures. Older, more lined, but with that same quiet strength. Outside, Lisa's call had already triggered a response. 12 minutes later, a dark SUV drove slowly past the store, its windows tinted, before circling the block. 2 more followed its path. 17 minutes after the call, the deep rumble of a powerful engine filled the parking lot. A black Suburban turned sharply, its tires protesting as it came to an abrupt halt in front of the sliding doors. The driver's door was thrown open before the vehicle had stopped moving. Major General Thomas Raines stepped out. He was dressed in his formal uniform, his chest covered in rows of ribbons and medals that gleamed in the Oregon sun. With his cap held under one arm and a determined stride, his face was an unreadable mask of authority. The automatic doors slid open for him, as if sensing his importance.
All conversations ceased. A shopping cart rolled into a display with a crash as its owner let go. The store's ambient noise seemed to fade away, replaced by the sharp, rhythmic click of his dress shoes on the tiled floor. Rains didn't look around or pause. His gaze was fixed on Danny Brooks from the moment he entered. Tyler Briggs, completely unaware of the approaching figure, was about to press his point again when Rains was upon him. And then, in front of all the shocked customers, the Major General of the United States Army stopped before the accused thief, straightened his back, and executed a crisp, sudden salute that silenced the entire store. Colonel Daniel Brooks, the man responsible for saving 3 battalions in the Korat Valley and the sole reason I'm standing here today.
The market went completely, profoundly still. The smirk vanished from Tyler's face like it had been wiped away. The cashier's jaw dropped. A mother in the next aisle whispered to her son, who immediately stood up straighter. Danny didn't react immediately. He didn't return the salute. He studied Rain's face for a heartbeat. Then his own hand rose, moving more slowly now, but with unwavering steadiness, to mirror the gesture. "Major General," Danny acknowledged quietly. Rains turned his gaze on Tyler, his voice still loud. "Was this the individual you accused of theft?" Tyler could only sputter. This man," Rains continued, his voice cutting through the silence, "once coordinated supply drops under fire to get provisions to troops cut off by the enemy. One of those provisions," he said, glancing at the coffee, "was this exact brand, delivered in aid packages he personally loaded while under enemy bombardment." Tyler took an involuntary step backward. The security guard stared at his shoes, swallowing nervously. Lisa Morgan had drawn nearer, her attention fixed on the symbol she had recognized, the silver hawk and 5 lightning bolts. "Sir," she said quietly to Rains, "he's still in possession of the coin." Rains gave a single firm nod, as is his right. The Major General faced Danny again. "We have something that's been waiting for you for a very long time." He signaled to an aide who had entered behind him. The younger officer stepped forward, holding a small case lined with velvet. Rains opened it, revealing a medal inscribed with the phrase, "Honor in Anonymity." He presented it, his voice finally softening. "This should have been given to you 28 years ago." Danny looked at the medal for a long while before accepting it. He shut the case, his thumb tracing the clasp. "I didn't show up for this," he said at last. "I came to honor a promise to someone who isn't with us anymore." For a long moment, nobody in the store breathed. Then Lisa, standing perfectly straight, raised her hand in a sharp salute. 2 older gentlemen by the dairy section did the same. Then others, veterans, reservists, and civilians, all stood a little taller, their expressions grave. Even those who didn't fully grasp the situation understood they were seeing something profound. Tyler Briggs was rooted to the spot, his face pale, his earlier arrogance reduced to nothing. In the back office, the accountant put down the phone and simply watched the screen, a small, knowing smile on his face. Outside, the other dark SUVs had established a silent perimeter, their drivers standing watch over the parking lot. For Danny Brooks, the world had gone quiet. The metal felt heavy in his hand, weighted down by the memories it represented. He placed it in his jacket pocket, next to the worn wallet, the challenge coin, and the silent conviction that some truths don't need to be shouted to be heard. Rains didn't leave immediately. He stepped back so that his voice would carry to everyone present.
"This man," he declared, indicating Danny, "contributed more to this nation and to its service members than most people can ever comprehend. And for what? To be accused today of stealing coffee? Let me be perfectly clear.
That coffee is the same kind we used to ship across the globe, in packages that Danny himself risked his life to get to us." The words hung in the air. Near the bakery, a young man took off his hat. A woman in a power suit, who had been on her way out, turned around to watch. Rains looked directly at Tyler Briggs. "If you are incapable of distinguishing between a criminal and a hero, you have no right to pass judgment on anyone." Tyler swallowed hard, his face bloodless, but he remained silent. Lisa Morgan's voice cut through the quiet. "Veterans, attention!" A rustle of motion swept the store. Two old men by the vegetables, a woman near the freezers, and even a young man in a camouflage sweatshirt who stood tall in solidarity. Salutes went up, crisp and respectful. Even the regular shoppers seemed to stand straighter, as if they were part of a silent jury that had just delivered the wrong verdict. Rains acknowledged the moment, letting it linger before he spoke again. "Some wear their service on their sleeves for all to see. Others carry it quietly in their scars, their minds, and in the weight of their actions. Colonel Brooks has carried it in silence for decades. Today, that silence is over." The young aide came forward and took the medal from its case. He pinned it to the left side of Danny's jacket. Danny glanced down at it, then said plainly, "I wasn't here for this. I was here because I made a promise to someone that I'd never let them be without." With that, he took his grocery bag, gave a single nod to Rains, and walked toward the exit. The salutes remained in place until the glass doors slid shut behind him. Danny stepped into the crisp air, the medal now tucked away beside his coin and wallet. There were no news crews, no requests for a statement. 1 week later, a new brass plaque was mounted above the supermarket's customer service counter. Colonel Daniel Brooks, service carried in silence. It didn't mention the coffee or the confrontation, but in that small Oregon town, the story was known. And after that day, people thought twice before they judged a quiet man with weathered hands and a faded hat.